Hey guys, happy March. Remember that good day we had back in the middle of February? And I was like, wow, it's really nice. It was like 70 degrees and it was feeling fantastic in the middle of February. Well, nature has a sense of humor and decided just to flip-flop a few days because we're now at the end of March heading into April and decided today to be 22 degrees. I am frigid. That's why we got the heater going. But nevertheless, work needs to be done. So we had to do a couple things off camera just because of scheduling and what have you. So we got the 350 turbo out of the wagon and we're able to put the 400 turbo back into the wagon. We're currently waiting on a 400 yoke and then we'll have to send the drive shaft out to be cut down to fit the longer transmission that we put in. The 350 that we pulled out of the wagon is now into the 40 Ford. Again, that was all off camera. Sorry, scheduling just kind of narrowed our window a lot. So we got it in, it's bolted to the motor, it's bolted to the cross member, everything else still needs to be done. We have to hook up the lines, we have to hook up the drive shaft, we have to put fluid in it, hook up the torque converter, finish putting the header back on because it needed to be removed to get it out. It's actually a pretty tight fit underneath there. And rehook up the exhaust. After we get done doing all that, we're going to try to bleed the brakes on this today. I had to get another master cylinder because the one that come with it was just absolute garbage. It was kind of misleading. It's like when I bought this thing, it was already half done, and that's why the gentleman got rid of it. So it was one of those things. So now we're just kind of going over everything, and as we're doing our work to it, we're finding other things that were wrong with it that I didn't catch when we first took a look at it. So we're going to get that done, and then we're just going to go from there. We still got wiring to do and a whole bunch of other stuff, so we're just going to work down the list and to see how much we can get done as we're making our way towards Cruise Week in OC. I'm really, really hoping that this makes it. I think it will. I have faith in me and Dave, mainly Dave, but we'll see how it works out. Stick around, stick with us.
One thing that is nice about working on old cars is removable floor plans, which is great for getting that last tranny bolt to line up with the dipstick, and also getting the trans lines on. So, you know, on most cars that's a real pain, but on this one actually seems not so bad. So now Vince is actually replacing, I know you can see that, a freaking bolt with 10 nuts on it that somebody decided to install on the starter. So we got a new bolt. We're gonna put the right one back in. So that's where we're at right now. And then as soon as he gets that in, I think we'll start working on that header. Well, Vincent finally got out of my way. I ended up putting the same long crappy bolt in, just with less washers, so it would be higher. I'm gonna start working on this mangled header that's been cut everywhere. Put a halfway decent gasket on it and pray to God it'll seal and not sound like something that's, you know, 45 years old, just tatting everywhere. So I'm gonna get into that while Vince is down there working on the drive shaft.
Okay, so here we are. Vincent is now attempting the header because I got so frustrated I was getting ready to break things. That middle one's the important one, Vinny.
Trying a new tactic.
That's not new. I tried that tactic.
Okay, so Vince did get it in. I got way too frustrated messing with that freaking thing. Like you can see, somebody has literally hacked the flange of the header to make it work. I don't quite know why it needed cut, but it would not go back on there and match up with the gasket properly. But it's on there now, and we're going to keep moving. So now, if you guys can see down in there, now that we've bent the exhaust to get the header back on, now the exhaust won't line back up with the header flange. And it's so tight that I don't know how we're going to get the header gasket in. But we're going to fight with this for a minute, see if we can't figure out the next dilemma. This is how it really is working on things in the 1940s with frames and subframes that have been hacked together and, you know, welded up and bolted together, and stuff that was never supposed to fit. Pretty sure this exhaust came off my 67 Firebird, in which he welded the mufflers right after the header flange instead of down the pipe a little ways because it was too short. So yeah, it definitely wasn't meant for this. As you can see, nothing fits, but we're going to keep going at it and see where we end up. Don't mind the ugly welds, but here's the header flange. We kind of got it spaced back enough. The ratchet strap tied to the frame to pull back on the exhaust, instead of right back there's a hanger that you could just take off and then relieve some of the pressure, maybe loosen the other header flange there since it's a X pipe, to give a little, you know, relief to the situation. But we're going to go with the ratchet strap. So checking in again, he got it lined up to where it's halfway right with the ratchet strap. But because of the pressure he was putting on with the ratchet strap, he decided that the floor jack needed to jack the pipe up to get it in line. Again, as I say, instead of loosening the other flange or the freaking exhaust motor or the exhaust mounts to do it properly. This is what Vincent does. And I guess you could blame me too, because I'm just sitting here videotaping, watching it happen. And then when we head towards the Ocean City, and it sounds like an old freaking Alice Chalmers running down the road, just a da-da-da-da-da-da, then he's gonna wonder why.
No, I know, that's not true. I know why.
I don't know why.
There's been a time where I asked, I'm like, oh, what the hell is that? Like, I know.
Oh no. There's been plenty of time. I don't know why that gasket won't seal. Well, you beat it with a hammer. Ah, that's not it. That's not it. The gasket must not be no good.
Hey guys, welcome to day 2 on our push to Cruise Week 2022 on our 40 build. I got to the shop a little while ago, and Dave was already cooking it up. I got in and we just started thrashing. Sorry, forgot to film this. But Dave already got the spark plug wires done, got that all sorted out. We got the steering column, the old steering column, put back in because we're going to try to move it tonight. it's just kind of held in there with hopes and dreams at this point and a few bolts because it's getting taken out anyway. We have a fresh one that we're going to put in, but for right now, I'd like to see if we can get it to move under its own power. So I'm going to be working on the dash panel and trying to get this door set up. We also got to bleed the brakes. Dave's going to be working on the sending units, running them outside the firewall so that actually our gauge cluster that we set up will work. The goal tonight would be to get this thing running and driving under its own power. Once that happens, then we'll take the column back out, put the new column in, finish up all the wiring, and hopefully get some lights. The goal is by this end of this week is to have at least headlights and it running and driving under its own power. So with a little bit of luck and actually with a whole lot of luck, we should be able to pull this off. So stick around.
Okay guys, I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see me like that, but whatever. The oil pressure sending unit is gonna go in the original stock location. I already put the wire on it because there's not enough room to get back there and put the wire on after I get it installed. So yeah, let's get to it. There she is, nice and tight. And we're going to run it up in there once Vince finally gets that put in. And then we're going to hook up the gauge. And I think we're going to have to run a manual water temperature gauge for right now because we can't seem to find the sending unit for the gauge kit that we bought. So let's keep going.
Okay, so we got our gauge cluster in. This is a machine fit. So anytime you're doing a machine fit, it's imperative to do it equally, but since we're dealing with something that's 80 years old, it's going to be tight in a couple corners. But we got it in, so now we're going to put bolts in from the back to hold her on.
What are we doing?
I messed up and I forgot to bench bleed the master cylinder, so we're going to do it now.
Not on the bench.
Not on a bench.
Right?
Yep. We're getting pretty good pressure right now. Okay, go ahead and just kind of like crack your thumb off at the same time. Yep. And I'll put the thumb back over. Good. All right, so we got the brakes done, front and back. Got the semi-new spark plug wires put on. We're using the old spark plugs because they were still in pretty good shape. This whole thing is going to get a tune-up eventually further down the line, but right now we're just trying to see if we can get it back and forth out of the shop to where we were. New master cylinder put on, new lines put on. Got the gauge cluster in to the new dash. Well, it's not a new dash, I refinished it. I think the only gauge that works on the gauge cluster right now is the oil pressure. We have to get a couple parts. This gauge cluster was actually bought from a gentleman who bought it in the 90s and has never used it. So I imagine from then till now, some things went missing and what have you. Battery's still in the floorboard. And yes, the old column is still in. That's going to be the very next thing to go. Got the brake pedal adjusted and the gas adjusted. I still got to make a pan for that side, but we're going to go from there. But now, we're going to see if she starts and gets on down out of the shop.
Charging.
Oh, battery's working too. Hot damn.
Put it in drive. Go ahead a little bit. Back up. Just go back and forth a little bit, then we'll check the fluid level. All right, now we'll check the fluid level. All right, guys. So it's been a tough week this week. Just seems like it's roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. So we tried to work on the steering column and the windows last night. Neither one of them worked out. So today I decided to conquer something that I think I can handle pretty easily. So I'm going to try to wire up these headlights and see if we can get them working. At least get a win in the column for the end of the week. And so let's get into it and see if we can get it done.
Okay guys, so at the end of the 900-hour mark, or at least that's what it feels like, we finally made some progress on the 40, even though it doesn't look like it. Looks can be deceiving. But we were able to get the back windows in, the vent windows. I know that this seal is kind of cruddy, but it's going to make it through this year, I promise you. I don't intend on driving this thing in the rain, and even if I do, I'm not sitting in the back seat. So these would be just fine for right now. The other side, the other seal is actually in a lot better shape. I ordered them, but I know they're not going to get here in time, so there's not even, they'll get here after cruise week, I can already tell. Got the transmission in, you heard that on the last one. It's puking transmission fluid now, which is always what you want to see 5 weeks before you go on a 3-hour trip. So we definitely got to get that sorted out. I really think it's just I think it's the transmission dipstick. I don't think it's seating properly. It was one that we had laying around. I don't even know if that's the right one. So we're gonna just buy a new one and replace that here soon. On the interior, we were able to get the steering column in, and it's wrong. It's not bolting up quite right at the bottom, or not bolting quite right at the top either. So we're definitely going to have to do some modification on that. If you're ever building a car like this, or just anything that you're kind of using the spare parts that you got laying around, you got to be prepared to spend a little bit of time on it and really massage things into place. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff with this car that was never intended to have any other the stuff in there. It was never intended to have S10 seats. I put those in there because I had them. The steering column is generic. It's supposed to fit, but it's a generic brand, so you're going to have to, wiggle it around and make it maneuver. The gauge cluster, that was another thing. It was supposed to be all, it just slides into place, slides in together, but when you're buying the gauges and the cluster from two different companies, you're going to have to make things work. You're going to have to figure it out as you go along. So just be prepared for that and make sure that as I step on a brand new piece, make sure that you prepare your time for that and just plan accordingly. Give yourself plenty of time. Don't do what we're doing and think you can get it done in 6 weeks, because I really think I'm going to have coat hangers holding some of this stuff together. So that should be fun the first time I get pulled over explaining that situation. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Along with refurbishing the old parts, we got shiny new parts that we're going to put on rusty and primered metal. Because why the hell not? So a lot of these pieces, if you're doing a car this old, Speedway Motors, they're going to be your friend. They have a lot of generic parts, a lot of parts that are semi-replicas of what you might be looking for, and they got a lot of options. So if you're building something like this, definitely check into them. They don't sponsor this channel or anything like that. That's just the company that I go to that has the best track record for me for one of these builds. Along with that, and getting the dash in and everything, Dave, the wire Houdini, has worked his magic again and actually got us running headlights. I couldn't believe it. I almost fell over when I came in today and saw him. So I'm going to switch spots with him so that we can show off the new headlights. And ta-da! It'd help if I hit the right switch. Ta-da! Aren't they pretty? And wait, we're legal too. Low beams, high beams. Low beams, high beams. Low, high, low, high, low, high. Oh, that's low. High. Woohoo! So at least now when we get into a head-on collision, they'll see us coming. That was a big, definitely a big win. This thing, when we got it, it literally had the motor and tranny in the rear, and that was kind of it. Everything else was hobbled together, as we're finding out as we move on. There's a lot of things that really made me question the guy that built this, which I don't remember his name, thank God. But yeah, so as we're going through it, we're correcting things. But since it was just a body, there was no wiring harness. There was remnants of what looked like was a wiring harness, but it also looked like spaghetti holding hands. So it was all over the place, multicolored, multi-gauge. I've never seen anything quite like it. It was like a rolling fire hazard. So Dave just ripped that all out, and at first I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, that's the wiring harness. And he said, no, that's death via battery. So after he got done ripping that out, he's been meticulously going through this thing and rewiring everything. It is flipping crazy. The headlights are just the peak of the iceberg. We still got to get turn signal lights. We still got to get running lights, marker lights. I need brake lights for the back, an intermediate switch hooked up so the brake lights will actually function. Now, this is a 1940, and they didn't have turn signals in 1940, but in the interest of safety, and since we're not doing a 100% numbers match rebuild, and I am going to be driving this thing, it just makes sense to put a couple of safety features on there. They didn't have seat belts either, but I definitely don't want to eat that dash. So I put in a few 5-point harnesses that I got out of one of my old cars that I used to drag race. They're out of service or whatever for a drag racing car, but for a street car, hey, they're still good. So I have to put another one in on the passenger side, and then we got to tie them together. But other than that, she's coming along. We still got to do the floorboards on the passenger and driver's side, and then I'm going to try to get at least the back seat repulsed. The front seats are kind of already set in place. I didn't drill any new holes. I just attached it to the floor in the normal spots that the seat would go into because I didn't want to drill any holes in the floor. This floor actually is in really good shape, so I didn't want to really bugger anything up. But the seats are up there because that was a good storage spot for them. I think they look good up there too. They add flavor to the garage. So amongst the mess, they got to come down, get reupholstered, hopefully, and get put in the back seat. It's definitely going to take up some space, knock the sound down, and just make the car look a little bit more fuller. Hopefully we can put in some type of carpet, but this is all as we're going forward. The hardest part that we're having trouble finding is back window guide tracks and the mechanical parts that actually roll up the back window. So that's definitely on the menu of what the flip are we going to do. But as we go forward and get this thing further and further down, you'll be with us the whole time. You'll see it. And I'm hoping in the next 3 weeks, that we'll actually be able to take it for a test drive, out to dinner or out to get towed. One of the two. So cross that bridge when we come to it. Stick with us. Hit that like and subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of our future content that's coming up. The 40 is going to be a big chunk of that. Dave's Monty is going to be another chunk. Eventually, my wife's Camaro is going to come out. I don't know if she's going to take it to Cruise Week or not, but we still got to get it ready for the summer because she's been chomping at the bit to drive it. So, yeah, that, and that. So leave us a comment. Tell us what you'd like to see. We're going to be detailing this thing too, just because I like to put wax on primer. I've done that a few times, and it turns out pretty good. So we're going to be doing that. But, yeah, until next time, guys, thanks for sticking around. And remember, if it's broken, try and fix it. Later.